She told everyone I murdered someone. That's what my son Marcus said when he called me at work. His voice was tight, controlled in a way that meant he was barely holding it together. I was sitting at my desk at the library where I'd worked for 23 years cataloging returns, when those words hit me like something physical. The stack of books in front of me suddenly seemed very far away. "What are you talking about?" I asked. My fingers found the edge of my desk. "Viaya is telling people you spent 15 years in prison for murder." Marcus's breathing was audible on the other end. "She's telling everyone at her book club, at the grocery store. She told my boss's wife at the gym." I set the phone down, carefully, the world around me, the quiet hum of the library, the soft beeping of the scanner. My coworker Eleanor shelving books 3 aisles over suddenly felt very far away. Viaya, my daughter-in-law. The woman I'd welcomed into our family 6 years ago. The woman I'd helped when she was struggling with postpartum depression after my grandson was born. The woman I'd sat with at 3 in the morning when she couldn't stop crying. That woman was telling people I was a murderer. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady beneath me. Eleanor glanced over from where she was working, her expression shifting to concern. I waved her off, grabbed my purse, and walked to the break room. My hands felt cold by the time I locked the door behind me. Marcus was still on the phone. I could hear him breathing. "Where is she saying this?" I asked. "Everywhere, Mom. It's spreading. People are asking me about it. My coworkers are looking at me differently. She's been doing this for weeks, maybe longer. I only found out because Jennifer from accounting mentioned it to me yesterday. She said she heard it from someone at the gym." My daughter-in-law, Viaya, had been spreading a lie about me for weeks, possibly longer, and I was only finding out now because someone had finally mentioned it to my son. How many people had heard this? How many people now thought I was a murderer? I sat down on the plastic chair in the break room. The fluorescent light hummed above me. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. "Why would she do this?" I whispered. "I don't know," Marcus said, "but I'm going to find out." The next morning, I didn't go to work. I called Eleanor and told her I was sick. It wasn't technically a lie. I felt physically ill, like something toxic was moving through my system. I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago and tried to think about what could have triggered this. What could have made Viaya decide to destroy my reputation with a lie so specific, so damaging, that it felt almost calculated? I thought back to the last time I'd seen her. It was 3 weeks ago at my grandson's birthday party. Viaya had been distant. I'd noticed it then, but attributed it to stress. She was working 2 jobs, trying to help Marcus save for a house down payment. But looking back now, I could see it clearly. She hadn't wanted me there. She'd made a comment about how I was always hovering when I'd helped set up the decorations. She'd corrected me twice when I was talking to Marcus about his job. And when I'd offered to pay for the cake, she'd declined sharply, saying they could handle their own expenses. But that wasn't reason enough to tell people I was a murderer. My phone rang at 9:30. It was Marcus. "I talked to her," he said without preamble. "She denied it at first, but then I told her I knew the timeline, that people had been telling me about this for weeks, and she just broke down." I waited. "She says you've been interfering in our marriage," Marcus continued. "She says you never thought she was good enough for me. She says you've been trying to turn me against her, and she says she did this to see if I would choose her over you." The coffee mug felt heavy in my hand. I set it down on the kitchen table very carefully. "That's insane," I said. "I know," Marcus said. His voice sounded hollow. "But Mom, she's not backing down. She's saying that if you want her to stop, you need to apologize to her. For being a bad mother-in-law? For trying to destroy her marriage? For not respecting her boundaries? I've never done any of those things. I know, but she's not interested in logic right now. She's interested in control. I stood up and walked to the window. My neighborhood looked normal. The Hendersons' house across the street. The morning light on the maple tree in my front yard. Everything exactly as it had been yesterday, except everything had changed. What are you going to do? I asked. There was a long pause. I'm going to tell her to stop, Marcus said. I'm going to tell her that if she doesn't stop, I'm going to tell everyone the truth, that she made this up, that there's no prison record, no murder conviction, nothing, that she lied. And if she doesn't stop? Another pause. Then I'm going to have to think about what that means for us, Marcus said quietly. I understood what he wasn't saying. If Viaya didn't stop, if she continued to spread this lie, Marcus would have to choose. And I knew, with a certainty that made my stomach turn, that he might not choose me. The lie grew. By the end of that week, I'd heard it from 3 separate sources. My neighbor Theoam had asked me about it carefully, as if asking whether I'd murdered someone was a delicate social situation. My sister had called, upset, asking why I hadn't told her about my prison time. A woman at the grocery store had recognized me and then visibly recoiled when she realized who I was. I started going through my day like I was moving through water. Work was impossible. I couldn't focus on cataloging books or helping patrons. I'd see people looking at me differently, whispering. Eleanor tried to be supportive, but I could see the questions in her eyes. How well did she really know me? How sure could she be that I wasn't exactly what Viaya was claiming? Marcus called every day, sometimes twice. He said he'd told Viaya to stop. He said she'd promised she would, but the lie kept spreading. It was like a virus, moving through the community faster than the truth could ever move. By the second week, I'd made a decision. I was going to confront Viaya directly. I drove to their house on a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus was at work. I knew that. I'd timed it that way. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, which surprised me. I'd expected to be nervous. Instead, I felt something cold and clear moving through me. Clarity, maybe. Or just the absence of hope. Viaya opened the door wearing a yoga outfit, her hair in a perfect bun. She looked surprised to see me, then something else. Something that might have been fear, or might have been satisfaction. Miraline, she said. I wasn't expecting you. I know, I said. Can I come in? She hesitated. Then she stepped back and let me through. The house was immaculate, everything in its place. My grandson's toys organized in labeled bins, the kitchen spotless. Viaya gestured toward the living room, and I sat on the edge of the couch. She sat in the armchair across from me, her posture perfect, her expression carefully neutral. Why are you telling people I was in prison? I asked. Marcus told you, Viaya said. It wasn't a question. Yes, and he also told me that you said I was interfering in your marriage, that I was trying to turn him against you, that you did this to test his loyalty. Viaya's jaw tightened slightly. He didn't understand the full situation. Then help me understand, I said. Help me understand how spreading a lie about me being a murderer makes any sense. Viaya stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the street for a long moment before she spoke. You've never respected me, she said quietly. From the moment Marcus brought me home, you looked at me like I wasn't good enough, like I was taking him away from you. And you've never stopped trying to prove that I'm not good enough. Every comment, every suggestion, every time you just want to help, it's all been about showing me that I don't belong. I listened. I let her talk. And underneath my anger, I felt something else. Sadness. Because some of what she was saying wasn't entirely untrue. I had been protective of Marcus. I had questioned some of her choices. I had offered advice when maybe I should have stayed quiet, but that didn't justify this. "So you decided to tell everyone I was a murderer?" I said. "I decided to show Marcus what it would be like if I wasn't here," Vyaya said, turning back to face me. "I wanted him to see what happens when you choose your mother over your wife. I wanted him to understand that there are consequences. By destroying my reputation. By making him choose," Vyaya said. "And he chose me, Miraline. He didn't defend you. He didn't immediately tell everyone you were innocent. He came to me and asked me why I did it. He was willing to listen to my side. That's what I wanted. That's what mattered." I stood up. My legs felt stronger now. My mind felt clearer. "You're sick," I said. "You need help, real help, because what you've done isn't love. It's not even about our marriage dynamics. It's about control. And if Marcus can't see that, then that's something he needs to figure out on his own." I walked toward the door. "Wait," Vyaya said. "Marcus said you wanted to apologize." I stopped. I turned back to look at her. "I'm not going to apologize for loving my son," I said. "And I'm not going to apologize for having boundaries. But I will tell you this. If you don't stop spreading this lie, I'm going to tell everyone the truth. Not just about what you did, but about why. And I'm going to make sure that everyone knows exactly what kind of person you are." I left before she could respond. The confrontation didn't change anything. If anything, it made things worse. Vyaya doubled down. She started telling people that I'd come to her house and threatened her. She said I'd called her sick. She said I was trying to intimidate her into silence. And somehow, in the retelling, her original lie became more credible. If I was angry enough to threaten her, didn't that suggest I had something to hide? Marcus called me that night, his voice tight with frustration. "She's saying you threatened her," he said. "I didn't threaten her," I said. "I told her the truth. I told her I would tell people what she'd done if she didn't stop." "That's a threat, Mom." "It's a consequence," I said. "There's a difference." "Is there?" Marcus asked, and I could hear the doubt in his voice, the uncertainty. Vyaya was working on him, eroding his ability to trust his own judgment. And I was starting to realize that I couldn't stop it. I could only watch it happen. Over the next month, the situation escalated in ways I couldn't have predicted. Vyaya started a social media campaign. She posted vague references to family trauma and toxic mothers-in-law. She shared articles about emotional abuse. She carefully constructed a narrative where she was the victim and I was the villain. And because she never explicitly mentioned me by name, I couldn't even report her for defamation. People I'd known for decades started treating me differently. The librarians at work became more formal. My book club stopped inviting me. Even Eleanor, my closest friend at work, seemed to pull back. She was friendly, but there was a distance now, a caution. I started going through my days in a fog. I'd wake up, go to work, come home, and sit in my living room wondering how my life had become this. Wondering when I'd lost the ability to control my own narrative. Wondering if there was any way to fix this. Marcus was struggling too. I could hear it in his voice when he called. He was caught between loyalty to his wife and the knowledge that she was lying. But Vyaya had done something clever. She'd made it so that defending me looked like choosing me over her. She'd made it so that any attempt to stop her felt like a betrayal of their marriage. One evening, about 6 weeks into this nightmare, Marcus came to my house. He looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he'd lost weight. He sat in my kitchen the way he used to when he was a teenager, after something had gone wrong at school. "I don't know what to do," he said. I made him tea. Chamomile, the way he liked it. I sat across from him and waited. "She won't stop," he continued. "I've asked her to stop. I've begged her to stop. I've told her that this is destroying our marriage, that it's destroying my relationship with you, that it's destroying my reputation at work. And she just keeps saying that I'm not supporting her, that I'm choosing you over her, that if I really loved her, I would stand by her no matter what. She's manipulating you," I said. "I know," Marcus said, "but knowing it and being able to stop it are two different things. She's my wife. I have a son. I can't just leave. And even if I could, what would that solve? The lie is already out there. People already believe it." He was right. The lie had taken on a life of its own. Even if Veaya stopped spreading it tomorrow, it would persist. It would become part of my story, part of my identity in this community. There was no going back to before. I realized, sitting across from my son in my kitchen, that I had to do something drastic. I had to take control of the narrative before it consumed me entirely. The next morning, I called the local newspaper. I asked to speak with a reporter. I told them the story. All of it. I explained that my daughter-in-law had been spreading a false rumor that I'd been imprisoned for murder. I provided dates, names of people who could verify that the rumor existed, and I explained the context. I was calm and factual. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I just laid out the facts. The reporter listened. She took notes. She asked clarifying questions. And then she said something that surprised me. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. "Because the truth matters," I said. "And because I'm tired of letting someone else control my story." The article ran 3 days later. It was front-page news in the community section. Local woman confronts daughter-in-law's false accusations. The reporter had done thorough work. She'd interviewed people who'd heard the rumor. She'd confirmed that there was no record of me ever being imprisoned. She'd quoted Marcus saying that his wife had admitted to spreading the lie. And she'd included Veaya's statement, which was basically a non-statement. Veaya's lawyer had advised her not to comment. The response was immediate and overwhelming. People who'd believed the lie started calling me, apologizing. Eleanor came to me at work with tears in her eyes, saying she'd never believed it but hadn't known how to address it. My book club invited me back. People who'd avoided me started treating me like myself again. But there was a cost. Marcus called me the day after the article ran. His voice was cold in a way I'd never heard before. "You went to the media," he said. It wasn't a question. "I did," I said. "I had to." "You humiliated her. You humiliated our family. Everyone at work is talking about me. Everyone at her work is talking about her. Do you understand what you've done?" "I've told the truth," I said. "You've declared war," Marcus said, and then he hung up. I didn't hear from him for 3 weeks. 3 weeks of silence that was worse than any confrontation could have been. I'd won the battle with public opinion, but I'd lost my son. Or at least, I'd pushed him so far away that I couldn't see him anymore. During those 3 weeks, I learned that Veaya had moved out. Marcus had told her to leave, but instead of bringing us closer, it seemed to have driven a wedge deeper between us. Marcus was angry at me for going public. He was angry at Veaya for putting him in this position. And he was angry at himself for not seeing what was happening sooner. I wanted to reach out to him. I wanted to call and explain that I'd done what I had to do. But I also knew that anything I said would just make things worse. So I waited. I went to work. I came home. I sat in my living room and wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. Then, one afternoon, Marcus showed up at my door. He looked different, smaller somehow, diminished. He was holding a folder. "I need to tell you something," he said, "and I need you to listen without interrupting." We sat in my living room, the same place we'd sat when he was a child, and I needed to talk to him about something important. He opened the folder and pulled out papers. Emails, bank statements, therapy notes, evidence. "After you went to the media, Viaya fell apart," Marcus said. "She started therapy. Real therapy, not just the manipulative kind where she was trying to convince me that I was the problem. And in therapy, she started uncovering things, patterns, behaviors. She's been doing this kind of thing for years, apparently, spreading lies about people, manipulating situations to create drama, testing loyalty." I listened. I didn't interrupt. "She has a diagnosis now," Marcus continued. "Borderline personality disorder. It doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains some of it, and she's getting help. Real help. She's in a treatment program. She's working with a therapist who specializes in this." "What does that mean for you?" I asked. "It means I'm trying to figure out what our marriage can be," Marcus said. "It means I'm in therapy too. It means I'm trying to understand how I missed the signs, how I let myself get so caught up in her narrative that I couldn't see what was actually happening." He looked at me then, really looked at me, for the first time since this had all started. "I'm sorry," he said, "for how I treated you, for not defending you immediately, for making you feel like you had to go to the media to protect yourself. I should have been stronger. I should have seen what was happening." I reached across the space between us and took his hand. "You were caught in something complicated," I said. "That's not your fault, and I'm sorry too. I'm sorry that I went to the media without talking to you first. I should have given you a chance to help me find another way." We sat like that for a while, not talking, just being in the same room together, and slowly, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but the beginning of understanding, the beginning of a path forward. Over the next several months, things slowly normalized. Viaya continued her treatment. She and Marcus started couples therapy. They didn't get back together immediately, but they also didn't divorce. Instead, they separated and took time to figure out what they actually wanted. Marcus spent more time with me. We had dinners. We talked. We slowly rebuilt the relationship that had been fractured by lies and manipulation. The community moved on. The story became old news. People stopped asking me about it. My reputation was restored, though I could still see the flicker of doubt in some people's eyes sometimes. The lie had left its mark, even though it had been disproven. A year after the article ran, Marcus told me that Viaya was moving back in. They were going to try again. But this time, with professional help, with accountability, with a commitment to honesty. I wanted to tell him to be careful. I wanted to warn him that people like Viaya don't change overnight. But I'd learned something through all of this. I'd learned that my job wasn't to protect Marcus from his own choices. My job was to be there when he needed me, to support him without controlling him, to love him without trying to manage his life. It was a hard lesson, but it was an important one. 2 years after Viaya first spread the lie about me, I was sitting in my living room on a Saturday morning. Marcus and my grandson were in the backyard playing. I could hear them laughing through the open window. The sound was so normal, so ordinary, that it almost hurt. I'd taken back my life. I'd reclaimed my reputation. I'd rebuilt my relationship with my son, but I'd also learned something about myself. I'd learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could survive having my character attacked, that I could stand up for myself even when it meant going against my own son. I'd also learned that sometimes the people we love hurt us, not always intentionally, not always maliciously, but they hurt us nonetheless. And the only way through that hurt is to face it directly, to speak the truth, to refuse to let someone else's lies become your story. The lie about me being in prison for murder had changed my life, but not in the way Vaya had intended. It hadn't destroyed me. It had forced me to become stronger. It had forced me to understand my own boundaries. It had forced me to choose myself, even when choosing myself meant potentially losing my son. In the end, I didn't lose him, but I came close. And that closeness to loss taught me something invaluable about what matters. Family matters, but so does truth. And sometimes, you have to be willing to sacrifice one to protect the other. Today, I'm still working at the library. I still live in the same house. I still see the same people at the grocery store, but I see them differently now. I see people who once believed a lie about me, people who were willing to judge me based on rumors, people who needed to be shown the truth before they could see me clearly again. And I see myself differently too. I see a woman who was willing to fight for her reputation, who was willing to go public with her pain, who was willing to risk her relationship with her son to protect the truth. I see a woman who survived being defined by someone else's lie. If you're facing something similar, know this: your truth matters. Your voice matters. And you have the right to tell your story, even if it means standing alone, even if it means losing people you love. Because in the end, the only person you have to live with is yourself. And you deserve to do that without the weight of someone else's lies crushing you. If you want more stories like this, stick around.